I always believed family loyalty was worth more than money, but at my aunt's 50th anniversary dinner, I learned the truth, reaching for the shared tablet. I saw a notification that stopped my heart. Legacy Fund Strategy. It was a group chat with my mother and siblings, everyone but me, as I watched them smile over wine. I realized they were not just sharing secrets. They were calculating exactly how to erase me from the ledger. The air in Briar Glen always smelled of damp pine and wood smoke in late October, a scent that usually signaled comfort, but that night it felt heavy, like wet wool. I parked my car along the curb outside my Aunt Sarah's house. Checking my reflection in the rearview mirror, I looked tired. At 33. I had the kind of face that showed a lack of sleep immediately. Shadows pooling under my eyes like bruises. I rubbed my cheeks to bring some color back, took a deep breath, and stepped out into the chill. It was Aunt Sarah's 50th anniversary dinner. It was supposed to be a small, intimate affair, just the core family, my mother, Marianne, my stepfather, Gordon, my younger siblings, Ethan and Paige, and me. I had been looking forward to it. Actually, my job as a project manager had been grueling for the last 3 months. A ceaseless parade of missed deadlines and budget disputes, and the idea of a pot roast and familiar conversation felt like a reprieve. I walked up the slate path, the leaves crunching loudly under my boots. The front window was glowing with warm, yellow light. I could see silhouettes moving inside, the animated tilt of heads in conversation. I reached for the brass knocker, but the door was unlocked, so I pushed it open. The laughter died instantly. It was a physical sensation, like walking into a wall of water. One moment, the living room was vibrant with noise, Gordon's booming baritone, Paige's sharp, high laugh, and the next, it was completely silent. Every head turned toward the entryway. "Oh, Violet, you are here." My mother was the first to speak. She was sitting on the edge of the beige sofa, a glass of white wine clutched in her hand. Her knuckles were white. She offered a tight, flickering smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We did not think you would make it on time," she said. Her voice was too high, brittle. I checked my watch. "I am 10 minutes early." "Mom, right. Of course. Well, come in. Get a drink." The energy in the room was wrong. It was vibrating with something frantic and concealed. Gordon was standing by the fireplace, one arm resting on the mantel in a pose that was meant to look casual but looked distinctly guarded. He cleared his throat, a rumble that usually preceded a lecture. "Good to see you, Violet," he said. "Hi, Gordon. Happy anniversary to Aunt Sarah." "Where is she?" "In the kitchen," Paige said. She was curled up in the armchair, scrolling on her phone. She didn't look up. Her thumbs moved across the screen with aggressive speed. I looked at my brother, Ethan. He was 26, 7 years my junior, and usually the one person in the family I could count on for an unfiltered greeting. Tonight, he was studying the pattern of the Persian rug with intense fascination. He held a bottle of beer that looked warm, like he had been nursing it for an hour. "Hey, Ethan," I said. "Hey, Vi," he mumbled, finally glancing up. His eyes darted to Gordon, then back to the floor. I took off my coat and hung it in the hallway closet. The silence stretched, thin and taut. Usually, my family was loud. We interrupted each other. We debated politics and complained about neighbors. This silence was performative. They were waiting for me to leave the room so they could exhale. "I will go help Sarah," I said. I walked through the dining room, where the table was already set with the good china, the gold-rimmed plates we only used for weddings and funerals. In the kitchen, the atmosphere was chaotic in a way that felt normal. Steam rose from a large pot on the stove, and Aunt Sarah was wrestling with a roasting pan. "Violet." "Thank goodness," she said, breathless. "Hand me those pot holders." I grabbed the thick quilted squares and helped her maneuver the heavy pan onto a trivet. The smell of rosemary and garlic hit me, rich and grounding. "Thanks," I said. "It smells amazing." Sarah wiped her hands on her apron. She looked flushed and happy, oblivious to the tension in the other room. Or maybe she just chose to ignore it. That was the Collins way. After all, If you did not acknowledge the elephant, it was just a piece of furniture. Can you grab the serving spoon, she asked. And I need the recipe for the glaze. It is on the tablet. I think I left it on the counter. I nodded and scanned the cluttered countertops. The family tablet was an ancient thing, a heavy slate-gray device with a cracked corner that had been passed around for at least 6 years. It lived in this house, mostly used for recipes, weather checks, and keeping the younger cousins occupied during holidays. I found it propped up against a ceramic canister of flour. The screen was dark. I pressed the home button. The screen lit up, but it did not show the glaze recipe. It was open to a messaging app. I froze. It was not a text thread. It was a group chat notification preview that hovered in the center of the screen. The group name was titled Legacy Fund Strategy. The name itself was enough to make my stomach turn over. The legacy fund was the money my grandfather had left behind. It was not a fortune, but it was a safety net. A structure meant to ensure that all of his grandchildren could afford a down payment on a house or weather a medical emergency. It was supposed to be equal, simple. I stared at the preview. Below the title were the names of the participants: Marianne Collins, Gordon Hale, Paige Collins, Ethan Collins, and a fifth name I did not recognize, Mercer Advisor. My name was not there. I stood there, my hand hovering over the screen. The kitchen sounds, the bubbling pot. Sarah humming to herself. The clatter of silverware seemed to recede into a long tunnel. My heart hammered a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. It overrides self-preservation. I knew, with a certainty that chilled my blood, that I should not open that thread. I should find the recipe, put the tablet down, and pretend I had seen nothing. But I could not. I tapped the notification. The app opened. The thread filled the screen. It was not just a few messages. It was months of conversation. I scrolled up, my eyes scanning the text, trying to absorb the sheer volume of it. The dates went back to early spring. August 12th. Gordon, we need to make sure the liquidity is there before the quarter ends. If we do not move the allocation, her share is going to sit stagnant. August 12th. Marianne. I hate doing this behind her back. It feels wrong. August 12th. Paige, Mom. Stop. You know how she is. If you tell her, she will ask a million questions and stall everything. She is too independent to understand family priorities. She thinks she knows better than the experts. August 12th. Gordon, exactly. Violet is unstable with money. She takes risks we cannot afford. Remember that trip to Europe? I stared at the words. Unstable with money, I had paid for that trip to Europe entirely out of my own savings. 3 years ago, I had 0 credit card debt. I owned my car. I managed multi-million-dollar budgets at work. I scrolled down. September 4th. Mercer Advisor, the updated paperwork is ready for review. As discussed, this amendment will route the primary distribution into a temporary hold account. We will frame it as an administrative necessity. September 4th, Gordon, and the signature requirement, September 4th, Mercer Advisor. Included, but she cannot know the full scope of the amendment. If she reads the fine print on page 40, we might have an issue. We need to present this as a standard update. September 5th, Ethan. Are we sure about this? It feels like we are cutting her out. September 5th, Paige. We are protecting the fund. Ethan, grow up. If she gets that cash directly, who knows what she will do? She is a risk. We are doing her a favor. My hand was shaking. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. It was not just the theft, and it was theft. I knew that immediately. It was the narrative they had constructed to justify it. They had rewritten my character. In this chat, I was not the responsible older sister who helped Paige with her resume or loaned Ethan rent money he never paid back. I was a liability, a loose cannon. I heard footsteps approaching the kitchen. Panic spiked in my chest. I quickly swiped out of the app, my fingers clumsy. I found the browser, tapped on the recipe tab, and propped the tablet back up against the flour jar just as my mother walked in. "Violet?" she asked. Everything okay? I turned. I forced my face into a mask of neutrality. It felt like my skin was made of plaster. Yes, I said, just finding the glaze recipe. Here it is. Mom looked at me, searching my face. She looked anxious, her hand toying with the pearl necklace she wore. She was checking to see if the mask had slipped. She was checking to see if I knew. Great, she said, her voice thin. We should eat soon. Gordon is getting hungry. She lingered for a second too long, her eyes darting to the tablet and then back to me. Then she turned and walked back to the dining room. I stood there for a moment, breathing in the scent of rosemary, feeling like I was going to be sick. The dinner was an exercise in torture. I sat between Ethan and Aunt Sarah. Across from me, Gordon and Mom sat like royalty holding court. Paige was at the end of the table, picking at her roast beef. I forced myself to eat. I cut the meat into small, precise squares. I chewed. I swallowed. Every motion felt mechanical. So, Violet, Gordon said, reaching for the wine bottle. How is the job? Still stressful. It is fine, I said. Busy. You look tired. Mom said, Are you sleeping enough? I am sleeping fine. Mom. You know, Paige said, looking up from her plate. Stress can really mess with your judgment. You should be careful. I looked at my sister. She was 29, still working part-time jobs and living in an apartment Mom and Gordon paid for. Her eyes were hard, challenging. My judgment is fine. Paige, I said evenly. I watched them. I watched the way they interacted. I saw things I had never noticed before. I saw the way Gordon controlled the conversation, steering it away from anything substantial. I saw the way Mom looked at him for approval before she spoke. I saw the way Ethan refused to make eye contact with me, keeping his gaze fixed on his water glass. They were a unit, a closed circle, and I was on the outside. So, Gordon said, clearing his throat again, we were thinking, with the end of the year coming up, it might be a good time to review some of the family finances. Just some housekeeping. My stomach dropped. Here it was. Oh, I said. I kept my voice light. Uninterested. Yes, Mom said quickly. Just standard stuff. Updates. The market has been so volatile lately. We want to make sure everyone is protected. Protected. That was the word they used in the chat. We are protecting the fund. We are actually having a little meeting next week. Gordon said. A check-in. Just to sign some updated forms. Nothing major. I gripped my fork. The metal dug into my palm. Who is running the meeting, I asked. Just us, Gordon said. And an advisor. Just to facilitate. An advisor, I repeated. Who? Just a consultant, Mom said, waving her hand dismissively. You do not know him. I looked at her. I looked right into her eyes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the table over. I wanted to shout. I know who L. Mercer is. I saw the messages. I know you think I am a risk, but I did not. I took a sip of water. The glass was cool against my lips. Okay, I said. Send me the details. Gordon exhaled. It was a tiny sound, but I heard it. Relief. They thought they had handled me. They thought I was the same compliant, conflict-avoidant Violet they had discussed in their thread. After dinner, I helped clear the table. I moved on autopilot, stacking plates, scraping leftovers into the trash. When the kitchen was empty, I pulled the tablet out again. I had to be fast. I opened the thread. My hands were steady now, fueled by a cold, sharp anger. I took my phone out of my pocket. I did not dare forward the screenshots to myself that would leave a digital trail on the tablet. Instead, I took photos of the screen. Click. The discussion about the hold account. Click. The insults about my stability. Click. The plan to hide the fine print. Click. The contact info for L. Mercer. I captured everything I could. Scrolling back through months of betrayal, every image was a piece of evidence. Every pixel was proof that the people I loved had sold me out for a slightly larger slice of the pie. I heard the toilet flush down the hall. Someone was coming back. I closed the app. I wiped the screen on my sweater to remove my fingerprints. I set the tablet back in its stand. When Aunt Sarah walked in to start the coffee, I was washing a serving spoon, the water running hot over my hands. "You are a saint, Violet," she said, patting my shoulder. I smiled at her. It felt like baring my teeth. I drove home in silence. I did not turn on the radio. I needed the quiet to think. The road wound through the dark woods of Briar Glen, the trees closing in like prison bars. My mind was racing, replaying the messages over and over. Unstable, a risk, too independent. They were projecting. I knew that. Paige was the one with the credit card debt. Gordon was the one whose last 2 business ventures had failed quietly. Mom was the one who was terrified of conflict, but they had turned it around. They had built a consensus reality where I was the problem, and because they were a group, and I was one person, their reality had weight. I got back to my apartment just after 10 o'clock. It was a small place, tidy and quiet, filled with books and plants. It was mine. I paid for it. I paid for everything in it. I sat down at my kitchen table and laid my phone out. I opened the gallery and looked at the photos I had taken. Seeing them on my own screen made them feel real in a different way. It was evidence. I zoomed in on the contact name. L. Mercer. Who were you? And why were you helping my family steal from me? I needed a sanity check. I needed to know if I was crazy, or if what I was seeing was as illegal as it felt. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Tessa Ward. Tessa had been my best friend since sophomore year of college. She was a paralegal at a firm in the city, sharp-tongued and fiercely loyal. She was also the only person I trusted completely. I hesitated. It was late, but I couldn't wait. I hit dial. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Vi. Is everything okay? You never call this late. I took a breath. My voice shook when I spoke. Tessa, I need you to tell me something, and I need you to be honest. Okay, she said, her tone shifting instantly from sleepy to alert. What is it? If a family trust has a beneficiary, can the other family members vote to move that beneficiary's share into a holding account without their consent, just by updating paperwork? There was a pause on the line. I could hear the rustle of sheets as she sat up. Violet, she said slowly, that depends on the specific language of the trust, but generally speaking, no. Not unless the beneficiary is incapacitated or a minor, or if the trust gives the trustees absolute discretion. Why I swallowed hard. Because I think my family is trying to do it to me. I told her everything. I told her about the tablet, the messages, the family finance check-in, the way they looked at me at dinner. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Send me the pictures, Tessa said. I cannot. Not yet. I do not want anything on a server that is not mine. I need to know if this is a thing. It is a thing, Tessa said darkly. It is called constructive fraud, or breach of fiduciary duty, depending on how they do it. But Violet, if they have an advisor helping them, this L. Mercer, that means they are building a paper trail to make it look legal. They are building a case against you. That is what I thought, I whispered. Do not sign anything, Tessa said. Her voice was fierce. Do you hear me? Do not sign a single piece of paper. Not a receipt, not a birthday card. Nothing. I won't. And you need the documents. You need the original trust instrument. Do you have it? No. I think Mom has the only copy. You need to find one, or we need to request it. But if you request it, they will know you are onto them. I know. Be careful. Vi. Money makes people crazy. Even family. Especially family. I hung up. I sat in the dark kitchen for a long time. My phone buzzed. I looked down. It was an email notification. Sender Marianne Collins. Subject Family Finance check-in for your security. I opened it. Hi, honey. As discussed, we are getting together next Tuesday at 5 o'clock to go over the updates to the Legacy Fund. It is just some housekeeping to make sure everything is secure for the future. I sent a calendar invite. Please accept, so we know you are coming. Love, Mom, for your security. The phrase made bile rise in my throat. It was gaslighting, pure and simple. They were wrapping a knife in velvet. I did not reply. I did not accept the invite. I stood up and walked to my bedroom. I went to the closet and pulled down the box from the top shelf. I had not opened this box in 4 years, not since the week after the funeral. It was a simple cardboard file box, labeled in my handwriting Grandad Estate. I carried it to the bed and sat down. The cardboard felt dusty under my fingers. My grandfather, Arthur Collins, had been a hard man in some ways, exacting. He built his wealth through a chain of hardware stores, penny by penny, but he had loved me. I was the oldest. I was the one who sat on his porch and listened to his stories about the war and the business. He had always told me, "Violet, you have a good head on your shoulders. You see things clearly." I wondered if he had seen this coming. I opened the lid. Inside were stacks of old papers, condolence cards, the funeral program, a few photos of him and me fishing at the lake, and at the bottom, a thick manila folder. I pulled it out. It was heavy. I opened it. There were tax returns from 5 years ago, a copy of his will, the public version, but nothing about the specific structure of the legacy fund. That was a separate entity, a private trust he had set up before he died. I thumbed through the papers, looking for a clue, a name, an account number. I found a letterhead I did not recognize. Renfield Community Foundation. It was a receipt for a donation he had made 6 months before he passed. I frowned. Renfield was a small organization. Why would the fund be connected to them? I turned the paper over. On the back, in my grandfather's shaky, spidery handwriting, was a note. V. If things get complicated, talk to Sarah at the foundation. She knows the intent. Keep your eyes open. Grandad. My chest tightened. Keep your eyes open. He had known, maybe not exactly this, but he had known that his family, my family, was capable of twisting his legacy. He had known that Gordon was greedy and Mom was weak. He had known that without him, there to hold the line, the wolves would come. And he had left me a breadcrumb. I looked at the date on the receipt. It was 5 years old. I did not know if Sarah at the foundation was still there. I did not know if Renfield Community Foundation still managed the money. But it was a start. I put the paper back in the folder and closed the box. I was not going to sleep tonight. I knew that. I walked back to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. I looked out the window at the empty street. They thought I was weak. They thought I was unstable. They thought I would sign their paperwork and say thank you for the scraps. They were wrong. I was not going to scream. I was not going to cry. I was not going to confront them at the dinner table and give them the satisfaction of calling me emotional. I was going to find out exactly what the legacy fund was. I was going to find out who L. Mercer was, and I was going to find out why they thought I was worth less than the rest of them. I picked up my phone and opened the calendar invite. I hit accept. Let them think they had won. Let them think I was walking blindly into their trap. The ambush works best when the target doesn't know they are being hunted. But the hunter becomes the prey the moment the target decides to fight back. I was done being the target. I turned off the kitchen light and stood in the dark. The silence of the apartment wrapping around me like armor. I would see them on Tuesday, and I would be ready. The Briar Glen Public Records Office was located in the basement of the municipal building, a space that smelled of ammonia and damp cardboard. It was a place where history went to be flattened into microfiche and digital scans, stripping away the emotion of the events recorded there until only the legal facts remained. I walked in at 9 o'clock in the morning, having called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. I told my boss I had a migraine. It was not entirely a lie. The pressure behind my eyes had been building since I saw the tablet, a throbbing reminder that my reality had fractured. I signed the guest log with a pen attached to the counter by a beaded chain. The clerk, a woman with gray hair cut into a severe bob, looked at me over the rim of her glasses. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm looking for filings related to a trust," I said, "or a foundation, the Collins Legacy Fund, or possibly listed under Arthur Collins." She typed slowly, her keystrokes loud in the quiet room. "I have nothing under a standalone trust by that name," she said. "If it is a private family trust, It would not be public record unless there was a lawsuit or a property transfer. Try Renfield Community Foundation. I said. I had remembered the letterhead from the folder in my closet. It was a long shot, but it was the only lead I had. The clerk typed again. Here we are, she said. Renfield Community Foundation is a registered nonprofit. They file annual reports. What are you looking for specifically? I need to know how the funds are structured. I said. She pointed to a computer terminal in the corner. You can search the charitable filings there. Look for the Form 990. It will list their assets and grant distributions. I sat at the terminal. The screen hummed with a low static whine. I navigated to the search portal and typed in Renfield Community Foundation. The documents loaded slowly. I opened the most recent filing, dated last year. It was a dense document, pages of accounting codes and donor lists. I scrolled until I found the section on donor-advised funds. There it was, the Collins Legacy Fund. It was listed as a component fund of the foundation. I read the description carefully. A donor-advised fund established by Arthur Collins for the support of educational and charitable initiatives in the Briar Glen area, with advisory recommendations provided by the Collins Family Committee. I stopped. I reread the line. Advisory recommendations provided by the Collins Family Committee. This was the key. My grandfather had not set up a rigid trust with unchangeable rules. He had set up a donor-advised fund in these structures. The foundation technically owned the money, but the advisors the family told them where to send the checks. It was a flexible tool, often used for philanthropy, but my grandfather had used it for family support, too. There was a line item for hardship grants and beneficiary distributions, which was the legal mechanism they used to send us our quarterly checks. The problem was the word committee. If the authority rested with a committee, then the committee voted, and if the committee voted, majority ruled. I sat back in the plastic chair, the air in the room feeling suddenly very thin. If my mother, Gordon, Paige, and Ethan were the committee, they held 4 votes. I held 1. Or maybe I held none. I had never been invited to a committee meeting. I had never signed a document appointing me to a committee. I had just received checks and thank you notes from Granddad's estate lawyer. This meant they did not have to break a law to cut me out. They just had to change the committee's advisory recommendation. They could vote to stop my distributions and redirect the money somewhere else, like a temporary hold account. I printed the pages. The printer chugged and spat out the warm paper. I held the evidence in my hands. It was not a smoking gun, but it was a map of the weapon. I needed to understand the rules of engagement. At noon, I met Tessa Ward at a diner on the outskirts of Harborwick. It was a chrome and neon place that served coffee strong enough to strip paint. Tessa was already in a booth. A pile of red-lined documents spread out before her. She slid them aside when I sat down. You look terrible. She said, Thank you. I said, I feel like I am vibrating. Did you sleep? No. I put the printed pages from the records office on the table. This is what I found. I said, It is a donor-advised fund, managed by Renfield Community Foundation. Tessa put on her reading glasses and scanned the document. She hummed, a low, skeptical sound. This is tricky. Violet, she said. Why? Because technically, once your grandfather donated that money to the foundation, it became their money. The family committee just gives advice. Now, usually, foundations follow that advice 99% of the time because they want the family to keep donating. But legally, the foundation has the final say. So the foundation could stop them from cutting me out. I asked. Theoretically, Tessa said, if they knew that the committee was acting in bad faith, or if the original gift agreement, the contract your grandfather signed when he gave the money, had specific protections for you. I do not have the gift agreement. I said, that is what you need. Tessa said, screenshots of a group chat show intent, and they show malice. They prove your family is conspiring, but they do not prove that what they are doing is technically illegal under the terms of the fund. If the agreement says the committee shall determine distributions by majority vote, then you are out of luck. But if it says distributions shall be made equally to the grandchildren, then they are violating the contract. I said, exactly. You need the governing documents. I took a sip of coffee. It was bitter and hot. How do I get them without tipping them off? You can't. Tessa said, you have to ask, but you have to ask the right person. Do not ask your mother. Ask the foundation. I pulled out my phone. I will call them right now. Tessa watched me, her expression unreadable. Put it on speaker, she said. I dialed the number for Renfield Community Foundation. It rang 4 times before a pleasant, professional voice answered. Renfield Community Foundation. This is Jessica. Hi? Jessica. My name is Violet Collins. I am a beneficiary of the Collins Legacy Fund. There was a pause, the sound of typing. Hello? Ms. Collins? How can I help you? I would like to request a copy of the current governing documents for the fund, specifically the gift agreement and any amendments regarding the family committee structure. There was a longer pause this time. The silence stretched out, filled only by the faint static of the line. I am afraid I cannot release those documents directly to you, Jessica said. Her voice had shifted. It was still polite, but the warmth had evaporated. It was the voice of someone reciting a script. Why not, I asked. I am a named beneficiary. The Collins Legacy Fund is a donor-advised fund, she said. Our relationship is with the designated advisors on the committee. Any requests for administrative documents must come through the committee chair. Who is the committee chair, I asked, though I already knew the answer. Mr. Gordon Hale, she said. My hand tightened around the phone. Of course. Jessica, I said, keeping my voice steady. I have reason to believe that the committee is acting in violation of the original donor intent. I am asking for the documents to verify my standing. I understand. Ms. Collins. However, I cannot breach our privacy protocol. If you have concerns, I suggest you raise them at the next scheduled review. She was stonewalling me. Can you at least confirm if I am a member of the committee, I asked. I cannot discuss committee details over the phone. Is there anyone else I can speak to? Is Sarah there? Sarah? My grandfather left me a note. He said to speak to Sarah at the foundation. Oh, Jessica said. Sarah Reynolds. She retired 4 years ago. The hope that had sparked in my chest flickered and died. I see, I said. Is there anything else? Ms. Collins. No. Thank you. I hung up. I looked at Tessa. She retired. I said. Tessa grimaced. That is unfortunate. But look, Violet, the fact that they wouldn't even answer if you are on the committee, that is telling. If you were on it, they would just say yes. The silence is an answer. My phone buzzed. I looked down. It was an email notification. From Renfield Community Foundation. Subject inquiry regarding Collins Legacy Fund. I opened it. Dear Ms. Collins, following up on your call, we have noted your request for documentation. We have forwarded your inquiry to the committee chair for review. We look forward to meeting with your family committee next week to discuss all pending administrative updates. Sincerely, Jessica Thorne, Administrator. I read the last sentence out loud. We look forward to meeting with your family committee. Tessa shook her head. Your family committee. She repeated, not you and your family. They have linguistically separated you. You are the subject matter. Violet, you are not the participant. It stings. I said, it really stings. That is the point. Tessa said, exclusion is a weapon. If they do it long enough, you start to believe you deserve to be outside. Do not let them do that. I paid the bill. I felt a cold resolve settling in my gut. I am not going to let them. I said. I drove to Harborwick in the afternoon. The sky had turned a bruised purple over the water, the wind whipping whitecaps onto the dark waves. Harborwick was the next town over. Slightly grittier than Briar Glen, less manicured. I was meeting my cousin Lena Quinn at a coffee shop near the pier. Lena was 10 years older than me, the daughter of my mother's estranged sister. She had always been the Switzerland of the family neutral, observant, and largely removed from the daily drama because she lived 40 minutes away. I saw her through the window, nursing a latte and reading a paperback. She looked up as I entered, her face softening into a smile that felt genuine. Violet, she said, standing up to hug me. "It has been too long." "It has," I said. I ordered a black coffee and sat down opposite her. Lena studied me. She had the same eyes as my grandfather, sharp, gray, and uncomfortably perceptive. "You did not drive all the way out here just to say hi." She said, "What is going on?" I hesitated. I did not want to drag Lena into the mud, but I needed a reality check from someone who knew the history. "It is about the fund," I said, "and Mom, and Gordon." Lena sighed. She set her cup down. "I wondered when this would happen." She said, "What do you mean, Violet? The tension about that money has been there since the day Arthur died. You were just grieving. You did not see the shark circling. Tell me." I said. Lena leaned in. "You know your grandfather didn't trust Gordon." "Right. He thought Gordon was a flashy talker with no business sense. When Arthur set up the fund, he wanted to make sure the money didn't just go into Gordon's investments. That is why he used the foundation, to create a layer of supervision. But Gordon is the chair of the committee." I said. Lena nodded. "Because your mother insisted. She threatened to contest the will if Gordon wasn't given a respectable role. Arthur was sick. Violet, he was tired. He gave in on the title, but he thought the foundation would act as a check and balance. They are not checking anything," I said. "They are letting Gordon rewrite the rules." Lena looked out the window at the gray harbor. "There is something else," she said quietly. "What, a few weeks before he died? I went to see Arthur. He was lucid. He was talking about you, me. He said he was worried you would be too proud to fight for what was yours. He said you were like him, stubborn and independent, and then he said something odd. He said, 'I wrote her a separate letter. Not everyone gets one, but she will need it.'" I froze. "A separate letter?" I asked. "I never saw it." Lena said, "And I never mentioned it to Marianne because, well, you know how she gets, jealous. But he was specific. He said he left you instructions." I thought about the box in my closet, the folder. There had been no letter, just the receipt and the note on the back. "Keep your eyes open." Was that it? Or was there more? I checked the box. I said, "There was nothing." Then someone took it. Lena said, "Or he hid it somewhere else, somewhere they wouldn't look." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty window. If there was a letter, and if Mom or Gordon had found it, they would have destroyed it. I said. Lena reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Be careful. Violet, money changes people. It reveals who they really are. Gordon is desperate. I heard he owes money on that condo development in Florida, and your mother is just desperate to keep him happy." "I know." I said. I left Lena with a heavy heart. The drive back to Briar Glen felt longer than usual. The world was darkening, the streetlights flickering on one by one. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw it. A thick white envelope was propped against my front door. It was not mailed. There was no stamp. Someone had hand-delivered it while I was out. I walked up the steps, my keys clenched in my hand like a weapon. I picked up the envelope. The return address was embossed in navy blue ink. Hale Mercer Advisory, Financial Planning Wealth Management. I stared at the name, Hale Mercer. The air left my lungs. Hale, Gordon Hale, L. Mercer. They were partners. The advisor in the group, Chat the L. Mercer, who was giving them impartial advice on how to structure the fund, was Gordon's business partner. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, locking it deadbolt behind me. I threw my bag on the couch and tore the envelope open. Inside was a glossy folder containing a document titled Beneficiary Responsibility Agreement. I sat at the kitchen table and began to read. It was a nightmare of legalese. It started with flowery language about preserving the legacy and ensuring long-term stability, but as I turned the pages, the tone shifted. Clause 4.1, Financial Disclosure. To ensure the beneficiary is in a position to responsibly manage distributions, the beneficiary agrees to provide quarterly statements of all personal debts, liabilities, and investment accounts to the committee for review. Clause 5.3, Lifestyle Conduct. The committee reserves the right to withhold distributions if the beneficiary engages in conduct deemed detrimental to the family reputation. And then, the one that made me gasp out loud. Clause 6.2, Undue Influence. The beneficiary must disclose any ongoing personal relationships, including romantic partners or roommates, that may influence financial decision-making. The committee reserves the right to interview such individuals to assess potential risk to the legacy fund. I dropped the paper. It fluttered to the table. This was not an agreement. It was a leash. They wanted to audit my life. They wanted the right to interview my friends. They wanted to know every cent I owed and every cent I saved. It was humiliating. It was designed to make me feel like a child, like an addict who couldn't be trusted with $20. And the worst part was the structure. If I signed this, I was agreeing that they had the right to judge me. I was handing them the gavel. I stood up and paced the kitchen. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear, from rage. They thought I would sign this. They thought I was so desperate for the money, or so afraid of conflict, that I would let them invade my privacy like this. I went to my laptop. I sat down and opened my email. I was not going to sign, but I was not going to scream either. I was going to be the professional they claimed I wasn't. To L. Mercer, Gordon Hale, Marianne Collins. Subject inquiry regarding proposed agreement. Dear Mr. Mercer and Committee, I received the document left at my door today. Before I can review this agreement, I require a copy of the original trust deed and the gift agreement established by Arthur Collins. My legal counsel has advised that I cannot sign any new agreements without first verifying the underlying governance structure of the fund. Please forward these documents by end of day tomorrow. Regards, Violet Collins. I hit send. My heart was pounding. I had mentioned legal counsel. That was an escalation. I had drawn a line. I waited. 30 minutes passed. Then 40. At 8 o'clock. My inbox pinged. From L. Mercer. Subject re-inquiry regarding proposed agreement. Dear Violet, I am surprised by the formal tone. We are simply trying to formalize the family's protection strategy. This agreement is standard procedure for the updated fund structure. Regarding the documents, the governing documents are held by the committee and are available for review during our scheduled meeting next week. We do not distribute sensitive internal documents via email. I urge you to reconsider your hesitation. This agreement is designed to protect you from future regret. Refusal to sign may result in a suspension of distributions while we assess the compliance status of your share. Best, Lucas Mercer. I stared at the screen. Protect you from future regret. It was a threat, smooth, polished, and barely veiled. Sign the paper, or we cut you off. And the regret wasn't just about money. It was a psychological jab. You will regret fighting us. I did not reply. I closed the laptop. I needed to know what they were saying when they thought I wasn't listening. I went to the kitchen and retrieved the tablet. I had stolen it. I hadn't meant to. But after the dinner in part 1, I had slipped it into my tote bag instead of leaving it on the counter. I told myself I needed to update the apps for Aunt Sarah. The truth was, I needed the window into their minds. I powered it on. I had put it in airplane mode immediately after taking it, so it wouldn't ping with a Find My Device alert. Now, I turned the Wi-Fi on briefly, just long enough to let the chat sync, then cut it again. The messages flooded in. They had been busy today. Today, 4:15 p.m. Gordon dropped the package off. She should have it by now. Today, 4:20 p.m. Marianne. I feel sick about the clause regarding her relationships. Is that necessary? It seems cruel. Today, 4:22 p.m. Paige. Mom, stop. It is not cruel. Remember the guy she dated in college? The musician, she paid his rent for a year. She is a soft touch. We are stopping her from being used. Today, 4:25 p.m. Gordon. It is leverage. Marianne, if she signs, we control the narrative. If she refuses, we have cause to hold the funds because she is non-compliant. It is a win-win. Today, 6 o'clock p.m. Ethan. What if she gets a lawyer today? 6:05 p.m. L. Mercer advisor. She won't. Lawyers are expensive and aggressive. Violet is passive. She will read the legal language, get overwhelmed, and sign it to make the problem go away. Today, 6:07 p.m. Paige. Exactly. Violet won't fight us. She hates conflict. She will fold. I read that line again. Violet won't fight us. She hates conflict. They were banking everything on that single assumption. They had built this entire strategy, the complex clauses, the stonewalling foundation, the threats about regret on the belief that I was too weak to stand up for myself. They had mistaken my silence for submission. They had mistaken my kindness for cowardice. I turned off the tablet. I walked to the window and looked out at the street. The envelope from Hale Mercer was still on the table, a white flag demanding my surrender. I picked it up. I walked to the shredder in the corner of my home office. I fed the beneficiary responsibility agreement into the machine. The blades whirred, slicing the heavy paper into thin, unreadable strips. Clause 4.1 and Clause 6.2 disappeared into a pile of confetti. I was not going to sign, and I was not going to fold. I went back to the closet and pulled out the box again. I took out the receipt with my grandfather's note. Keep your eyes open. I sat on the floor, surrounded by the remnants of the life he had built and the evidence of the trap my family had laid. They wanted a meeting, fine. I would go to the meeting, but I wouldn't be signing their papers. I would be bringing my own. I pulled out a fresh notebook. I uncapped a pen. Step 1, I wrote. Define the relationship between Gordon Hale and Lucas Mercer. Step 2, I wrote. Prove the conflict of interest. Step 3, I wrote. Find the separate letter. If it existed, I would find it. And if I found it, I wouldn't just use it to save my share of the fund. I would use it to burn their entire committee to the ground. The time for being the good sister was over. I closed the notebook. The house was quiet, but the silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like the calm before a storm. And for the first time in days, I wasn't afraid of the thunder. I was the one who was going to make the noise. My mother's living room had always been a stage set for domestic perfection. Even now, with betrayal hanging in the air like ozone. The pillows were plumped, the hydrangeas were fresh, and a plate of artisanal cheese and crackers sat centered on the coffee table. It was Tuesday, 5 o'clock, the family finance check-in. I walked in precisely on time. They were already seated, waiting for me. Marianne was in her usual spot on the sofa, clutching a mug of tea with both hands as if for warmth. Gordon sat beside her, legs crossed, projecting the relaxed authority of a man who believes he holds all the cards. Paige was perched on the arm of the love seat, scrolling on her phone but watching me from the corner of her eye. Ethan sat on the floor near the fireplace, picking at a loose thread on his jeans. There was an empty chair facing them. A single wingback chair, positioned so I would have to look at all of them at once. On the small table beside it lay a navy blue folder. The bait. Hello, everyone. I said. My voice was calm. I had practiced it in the car. Violet, Gordon said. Standing up to offer a handshake I ignored. Glad you could make it. Have a seat. I sat down. I did not touch the folder. I folded my hands in my lap and looked at my mother. Hi, Mom. Hi, honey, she said. Her voice was thin, reedy. She looked tired. She offered a tight, anxious smile. I am glad you are here. We just want to make sure everyone is on the same page. Of course, I said. The silence that followed was thick. Gordon cleared his throat. The sound distinct in the quiet room. Right, he said. Let's get started. As you know, Violet, the market has been unpredictable lately. We have been working with our advisors to tighten up the ship. Ensure the legacy your grandfather built is protected for the long haul. Security, Marianne added quickly, nodding. It is all about security. We want to make sure you are safe, that everyone is safe. I watched them. I watched the way Gordon's eyes flicked to the folder and then back to me, gauging my reaction. I watched the way Paige studied her fingernails, feigning disinterest. I watched Ethan, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else on Earth. We have drafted some updated protocols. Gordon continued. Standard stuff. Just formalizing what we have always done. We want to make sure the distributions are managed responsibly. Responsibly, I repeated. Exactly, Gordon said. You know how it is. Scammers are everywhere these days. And with your lifestyle, we just want to add a layer of protection. My lifestyle, I asked. I am a project manager. Gordon, I have a 401k. I own my car. What part of my lifestyle is a risk? Gordon waved a hand dismissively. It is not about you specifically, Violet. It is about the principle. We are implementing this for everyone. Everyone I asked. So Paige has to sign this agreement too. Paige looked up sharply. I already signed it. She said, It is no big deal. Violet, stop being so dramatic. I looked at the folder. So this is the beneficiary responsibility agreement you mailed me, I asked. Gordon nodded. Just a formality. Sign it, and we can release this quarter's distribution immediately. And if I don't, Gordon's smile didn't waver. But his eyes hardened. Then we have to hold the funds in escrow until compliance is met. It is in the bylaws now. I see. I said. I did not reach for the pen. I did not open the folder. I just sat there, looking at them. It was a fascinating study in group dynamics. Gordon was the enforcer, the one comfortable with the cruelty because he framed it as business. Marianne was the emotional lubricant, using words like love and security to make the pill easier to swallow. Paige was the resentful chorus, validating their actions by painting me as difficult. And Ethan was the collateral damage. Violet, please, Marianne said, leaning forward. Just sign it. It is for your own good. We do not want you to worry about money. I am not worried about money. Mom, I said, I am worried about control. Ethan spoke up then. His voice was quiet. Vi, just sign it for now. He said, we can look at it again later. It is easier this way. Easier for who I asked him. He flinched. Paige rolled her eyes. God, you always do this, she said. You always have to be the exception. You think you are so smart. Reading every little line. Why can't you just trust your family? I turned to her. Trust is earned. Paige, and right now, I am looking at a document that asks me to disclose my personal relationships to a committee. That does not feel like trust. That feels like surveillance. It is standard, Gordon barked. High net worth families do this all the time. To protect against gold diggers. I laughed. It was a short, dry sound. Gold diggers. Gordon, my share of the fund is $5,000 a quarter. It is helpful, but it is hardly high net worth. It adds up, Gordon said. And the principal is substantial. We have to protect the principal. I looked at him. I looked at the way he sat, expansive and arrogant in my father's old chair. I looked at the way my mother shrank beside him. I decided to drop the bomb. Who is L. Mercer? I asked. The room went still. It was not a gradual silence. It was an instant vacuum. The air was sucked out of the room. Gordon froze. His mouth was slightly open, ready to form a rebuttal. But the words died in his throat. Marianne's hand flew to her necklace. Paige stopped scrolling. What Gordon said. L. Mercer, I said again, enunciating every syllable. Who is he? And why is he in your private group chat? Gordon's face went through a complex series of spasms. Confusion, realization, panic, anger. He is a consultant. Gordon stammered. A financial consultant. Is he, I asked, or is he your business partner at Hale and Mercer Advisory? Gordon turned a shade of red that bordered on purple. How? Where did you hear that name? He demanded. I took out my phone. I opened the gallery. I held it up, showing the screenshot of the group chat, the timestamp, the names, the message from Paige calling me too independent. I saw your chat. I said, I saw everything. The plan to update paperwork, the strategy to route my money into a hold account, the rehearsal of these exact talking points. Marianne let out a small, strangled sob. Violet. No, she whispered. It wasn't. We didn't mean. You said I was unstable. Mom, I said, looking at her, you let them say I was a risk. I didn't, Marianne cried. I worried. And you, I said, turning to Paige, you said I would fold because I hate conflict. Paige glared at me. Her face flushed. Well, You do. She snapped. You are doing it right now. You are making a scene instead of just handling it. I am not making a scene. I said, I am stating facts. You have a secret group chat where you discuss how to manipulate me. You have an external advisor who is actually Gordon's partner, which is a massive conflict of interest. And you are trying to force me to sign a contract that gives you control over my personal life. I stood up. I am not signing. I said. Gordon stood up too. He was taller than me, looming. You have to sign. He said, if you don't, you are in violation of the committee's new policy. You will get nothing. Then I get nothing. I said, but I'm keeping my dignity. I turned to leave. Violet Ethan called out, wait. I didn't wait. I walked to the door. Gordon's voice followed me, loud and ugly. You are making a mistake, Violet. You are going to regret this. I walked out the front door and down the steps. The cool evening air hit my face, drying the sweat that had beaded on my hairline. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I reached for my car door. Violet. I turned. Marianne was running down the steps in her stocking feet. She looked frantic. Violet, please, she said, grabbing my arm. Do not leave like this. Let go. Mom, please. You do not understand. Gordon is just trying to help. He's under a lot of pressure. That is not my problem. I said, he is doing this for the family, she pleaded. Your grandfather. He would have wanted us to be united. He worried about you. Violet. He told me so. He said, Marianne, look after Violet. She is too hard on herself. I stared at her. She was using his name. She was using my dead grandfather to guilt-trip me into submission. It was low. It was the lowest thing she could have done. Granddad didn't want me controlled. Mom, I said, he wanted me free. He wanted you safe, she cried. And this fund. It is the only way we can keep everything together. Please, just come back inside. Just talk to Gordon. I pulled my arm away. No. I said. I got in the car. I locked the doors. Marianne stood in the driveway, watching me. Her arms wrapped around herself as if she were freezing. I backed out and drove away. I didn't go home. I couldn't go home. The adrenaline was still pumping through my veins, making it impossible to sit still. I needed to feel close to him, to Granddad. I needed to know if I was right, or if I was just the paranoid, unstable daughter they claimed I was. I drove to Northbridge Storage. It was a facility on the edge of town, a row of orange metal doors behind a chain-link fence. After the funeral, when we were clearing out the house, Gordon had insisted on moving non-essential items into storage. He said he would sort through them later. He never did. I pulled up to the gate. I punched in my code. The gate rattled open. I drove to Unit 42. I parked and got out. I had a key on my ring, a small brass key I had kept for 3 years, just in case. I rolled up the door. The smell of dust and old paper hit me. The unit was piled high with boxes, furniture covered in sheets, lamps, and stacks of plastic bins. I had come here looking for clarity. I didn't know what I expected to find, maybe just a sense of his presence. But as I walked deeper into the unit, using my phone flashlight to cut through the gloom, I saw something that made me stop. There was a clipboard hanging near the entrance, a log sheet for access. I shone the light on it. The last entry was dated 2 days ago. Name G. Hale. Time 4:30 p.m. Gordon had been here. Why I looked around. The boxes looked undisturbed. But then I noticed a stack of file boxes in the corner. They were slightly askew, as if someone had moved them and put them back in a hurry. I went over to them. I lifted the top box. Underneath was a metal document box. It was gray, heavy, and locked. I had never seen this box before. I tugged on the lock. It held fast. I took out my phone and called Lena. She answered on the first ring. Violet. Are you okay? I am at the storage unit. I said, Northbridge. I found a locked box. A metal one. Gordon was here 2 days ago. Do you think he put it there? Lena asked. Maybe. Or maybe he came looking for it and couldn't open it. It looks old. Lena, it looks like Granddad's. Try a combination. she said. I do not know the combination. Think. Violet. Arthur was a creature of habit. He used dates. I tried his birthday. April 12th, 38. Nothing. I tried the date the business opened. September 1st, 65. Nothing. I tried my grandmother's birthday. 11/22/40. Nothing. Think about what he told me. Lena said. He said he left a letter for you. Maybe the code is about you. My birthday, I asked. It seemed too simple. Try it, she said. I turned the dials. 0, 6, 1, 8, 8, 9. Click. The latch popped open. My breath hitched. I opened the lid. Inside, there was no money, no gold bars, just paper. There was a stack of old trust summaries, dating back 10 years, a slim black binder labeled Amendments Committee Notes, and on top, a white envelope. On the front of the envelope, in shaky blue ink, was a single name, Violet. I picked it up. My hands were trembling so hard, I almost dropped it. Read it, Lena whispered over the phone. I tore open the envelope. I pulled out a single sheet of yellow legal pad paper. My dearest Violet, if you are reading this, then the family has lost its way. I hoped I would be wrong. I hoped that leaving them the committee would force them to work together. But I know your mother's fear, and I know Gordon's ambition. I am writing this to you because you are the only one who never asked me for a loan. You are the only one who sat with me when I was sick and didn't talk about the will. You have a spine. Violet. You will need it. The fund was never meant to be a leash. It was meant to be a ladder. But money turns into power very quickly when people are insecure. Listen to me carefully. If they ever make you sign something to receive what is already yours, you are not receiving a gift, you are accepting control. Do not sign. Do not bend. I have left a copy of the original deed of gift with my old attorney, Marcus Thorne, in the city. He has instructions to release it only to a beneficiary who comes asking for it specifically. They think I destroyed the originals. I did not. Trust your gut. Protect your sister if you can. But do not let her drag you down. And remember who you are. Love, Granddad. I read the letter twice. Tears pricked my eyes. Hot and sudden. He knew. He had known everything. He had set a trap for them, and he had given me the key. I picked up the black binder. Amendments Committee Notes. I opened it. It was a log of every meeting the committee had held since his death. January 2024. Vote to increase administrative fees to Hale Mercer Advisory to 2.5%. Approved. June 2024. Vote to restrict beneficiary access to account statements. Approved. September 2025. Discussion regarding V. Collins. Proposal to create conditional distribution tier. Tabled for legal review. They had been planning this for years. They had been slowly, methodically turning the fund into their own private bank account, stripping away transparency layer by layer. And Gordon had been here 2 days ago. He must have been looking for this box. He must have known it existed, or suspected it, but he hadn't known the combination, because the combination was my birthday. He couldn't open it because he didn't care enough about me to remember the date. I closed the box. I took the letter, the binder, and the summaries. Violet Lena asked, "What is it I found it?" I said, "I found everything." "What does it say?" "It says I was right," I said, "and it says where the real documents are." I walked back to the car. The night air felt different now. It wasn't cold. It was bracing. I put the documents on the passenger seat. I looked at them. They were more than just paper. They were a shield and a sword. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Marianne. "Please don't do anything drastic. Paige is fragile right now. We can work this out." I looked at the message. Paige is fragile. Always Paige. Always the victim. I didn't reply. I started the car. I wasn't going to do anything drastic. I was going to do something legal. I was going to find Marcus Thorne. I drove out of the storage facility, the gravel crunching under my tires. I felt a strange sense of calm. The confusion was gone. The hurt was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it was manageable. I knew the truth now. My family hadn't just drifted away from me, they had actively pushed me out. They had weighed my value against their greed and found me wanting. But they had made one critical mistake. They thought I was alone. But I wasn't. I had Tessa, I had Lena, and I had Arthur Collins. I touched the letter on the seat beside me. You have a spine. Violet, you will need it. I merged onto the highway, heading back toward the lights of Briar Glen. I was ready to use it. The fluorescent lights of Tessa's dining room hummed with a low, electric buzz that seemed to match the frequency of my own nervous system. It was nearly midnight. We had been at it for 4 hours. The contents of my grandfather's metal box spread out over her oak table like a coroner performing an autopsy on a 20-year-old crime. Tessa sat across from me, her reading glasses perched at the end of her nose, a yellow highlighter clamped between her teeth. She was reading the amendment log I had found in the binder. "This is sloppy," she said, taking the highlighter out of her mouth. "It is arrogant. They did not even try to hide the paper trail because they never thought anyone would audit it." "Show me," I said. Tessa turned the binder toward me and pointed to a paragraph dated October of 2 years ago. "Look at this amendment," she said. Amendment 4. It changes the voting structure of the committee from unanimous consent to simple majority. That was the first domino. Before that, they needed everyone to agree to move money. After this, they just needed 3 votes out of 5. I read the text. It was dry. Legal boilerplate, but the implications were violent. "And look at the notification clause," Tessa said, tapping the page with her nail. "It says here that all beneficiaries must be notified of structural amendments via certified mail to their last known address of record." I looked up. I never got a certified letter. I said. Tessa flipped to the back of the binder, where a stapled stack of postal receipts was kept. She scanned them, her finger tracing the lines. "Here it is," she said. "October 14th. Certified mail sent to Violet Collins." She read the address out loud. Number 4B, The Crest, 210 University Avenue. I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. That was my college apartment. I said, "I moved out of there 11 years ago." Tessa looked at me grimly. "And what address do they use when they send your quarterly checks?" "My current one." I said, "The one on Elm Street. They have my current address." "Tessa, they use it 4 times a year." "Exactly," Tessa said. She slammed the binder shut. "They sent the notice of the rule change to a dead address on purpose. They satisfied the legal requirement of notification while ensuring you never actually saw it. It is fraud, Violet. It is constructive fraud." I sat back, rubbing my temples. The room felt too small. "It is worse than that." I said, "Look at the date again. October 14th, 2 years ago." "What about it?" I pulled out my phone and opened my photo gallery. Scrolling back through the years until I found the screenshots I had taken of the group chat. I had to scroll a long way back, cross-referencing dates in my head. 2 years ago, in September. Gordon asked me to invest in his craft brewery project. I said, "Do you remember that?" Tessa rolled her eyes. "The one that went under in 6 months? Yes." I told him no. I told him the business plan was thin and the location was bad. He got furious. He called me unsupportive. He said I thought I was too good for the family business. I showed her a screenshot from the chat, dated September 30th of that year. "Gordon, she thinks she is smarter than us. She is hoarding her cash while we try to build something. We need to tighten the rules. We cannot let her hold the family hostage." 2 weeks later, I said, pointing to the binder, "They passed Amendment 4. They changed the voting rules so they wouldn't need my consent for future investments." Tessa stared at the timeline. "He retaliated," she whispered. "You bruised his ego. So he changed the bylaws. It was not just greed, it was punishment." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. I felt sick. I had always known my family was dysfunctional. I knew we were not the Bradys, but I had thought our dysfunction was emotional guilt trips. Passive aggression, silence. I had not realized it was transactional. I had not realized that my no had a price tag attached to it. We have them, Tessa said from the table. This proves bad faith. We can file an injunction tomorrow. We can freeze the assets. I turned back to her. Not yet, I said. Why not Violet? They are stealing from you. Because if I sue them now, Gordon will spin it. He will say, I am attacking the family because I am bitter. He will say I am unstable, just like he told the foundation. I need the foundation to see it for themselves. I need the foundation to be the ones who shut him down. Tessa sighed, rubbing her face. You are playing a long game. Vi, it is the only game I can win. I said, if I go to court, I lose my family forever. If I force the foundation to act, it is compliance. It is policy. It takes the weapon out of my hand. You think you can save the relationship with your family after this? Tessa asked. Her eyebrows raised. No, I said quietly. I think that is already gone, but I want to save my name. The next morning, I drove to Larkhill. The Renfield Community Foundation was housed in a converted brick mill building, the kind of place that signaled responsible stewardship with its exposed beams and tasteful landscaping. It was 20 minutes from Briar Glen, a distance that felt like a psychological buffer. I walked into the lobby. It was quiet, smelling of coffee and floor wax. A receptionist sat behind a high glass desk. I am here to see the Director of Donor Services. I said, my name is Violet Collins. I did not have an appointment. I banked on the fact that Collins was a name they recognized. The fund was not huge, but it was significant enough to be known. The receptionist made a call. 5 minutes later, a woman in a beige cardigan walked out. She looked to be in her 40s, with a kind, tired face. Ms. Collins, she asked. I am Karen. I handle the donor-advised accounts. I shook her hand. I need to speak with you about the Collins Legacy Fund. I said, privately. Karen hesitated, glancing at the receptionist. We usually coordinate with the committee chair. Mr. Hale, she said. I know, I said, but I have documents that I believe the foundation has not seen. Documents that affect the compliance status of the fund. The word compliance is a magic word in the nonprofit world. It suggests audits, IRS trouble, and scandal. Karen's posture stiffened immediately. Come with me, she said. She led me to a small conference room with a glass wall. We sat down. I placed the binder on the table. I am a beneficiary of the Collins Legacy Fund. I said, I have recently discovered that the Family Committee has passed several amendments regarding distribution rules and voting rights. I am here to request a full copy of the current governing documents held by the Foundation, to compare them with my records. Karen folded her hands. She looked uncomfortable. Ms. Collins, she said gently. As we explained on the phone, the Foundation's relationship is technically with the advisors. We rely on the Family Committee to manage internal communication. If there is a dispute within the family, it is not a dispute. I interrupted. It is a procedural failure. I opened the binder to the page with the old address. The committee bylaws require notification of all beneficiaries for amendments. I said, this notice was sent to an address I vacated a decade ago. The committee knew my current address. They used it for checks. This was a deliberate attempt to bypass the notification requirement. Karen looked at the page. She didn't touch it. That is, irregular, she admitted. I turned the page to the section on advisory fees. I also see here that the fund pays an advisory fee to Hale and Mercer Advisory. I said, are you aware that Gordon Hale, the committee chair, is a partner at that firm? Karen blinked. Mr. Hale is an investment professional. She said, it is not uncommon for families to use their own advisors. Is it common for the advisor to also be the person voting to approve his own fees? I asked. Without disclosing the conflict to the other beneficiaries, Karen was silent. She looked at the binder, then at me. I could see the wheels turning. She was calculating the risk. On one side, a wealthy local family who might pull their donation. On the other, a beneficiary alleging fraud with documentation on the table. Institutions are designed to seek equilibrium. They do not want truth. They want quiet. Karen wanted me to go away so she wouldn't have to be the bad guy. Ms. Collins, she said finally, we rely on the family committee to act in good faith. If there are interpersonal issues, I stopped her. This is not interpersonal. Karen, this is fiduciary, and I need to know something else. What else does this fund support? Karen sighed. She typed something into her laptop. Besides the family distributions, the fund supports the Renfield Community Scholarship, she said. It provides tuition assistance for 3 local students each year, and a grant to the food pantry. I felt the air leave my lungs. Scholarships, I asked? Yes, she said. It was your grandfather's passion. I didn't know. I had never been told. If the fund is frozen because of mismanagement, I asked, what happens to those scholarships? Karen looked at me steadily. If the fund is frozen, all disbursements stop. Including the scholarships, the students would lose their funding for the upcoming semester. I sat back. This was the leverage, and it was also the trap. If I blew this up, if I demanded a forensic audit and froze the accounts, I wouldn't just be hurting Gordon and Mom. I would be taking tuition money away from 3 kids who had nothing to do with my family's greed. Gordon probably knew that, or maybe he didn't care. But I cared. I closed the binder. I am not asking you to freeze the fund today. Karen, I said. She exhaled, her shoulders dropping an inch. I am asking for the documents. I said, I want the official set that the foundation has on file. I need to know exactly what my grandfather signed versus what my stepfather has written. Karen hesitated, then nodded. I can give you the original gift instrument, she said, and the current bylaws as we have them, but I cannot give you the committee's internal minutes. That is fair. I said. She left the room. I sat there, looking at the gray carpet. They had hostages, unknowing, innocent hostages. Karen returned with a manila envelope. Here, she said, please try to resolve this with Mr. Hale. We value the Collins family's support. I took the envelope. I value the truth. Karen, I said. I walked out. The sun was shining outside, bright and indifferent. I called Tessa from the car. They have scholarships. I said, what the fund pays for local kids to go to college. If I freeze it, the kids lose the money. Damn, Tessa said. That complicates things. It changes everything. I said, I cannot go nuclear. Not yet. You need an audit. Violet, Tessa said. You need to know how much Gordon is taking. I know. I said, but if I demand a formal audit, the foundation freezes the assets automatically during the investigation. So what do you do? I confront them. I said, but not with a lawyer, with facts. I give them one chance to fix it quietly, for the kids. And if they don't, then I burn it down, I said, and I write the checks for the kids myself if I have to. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. A text from Marianne. Please don't do anything drastic. Paige is fragile right now. This stress is really hard on her. I stared at the words. Paige is fragile. It was a masterclass in deflection. My mother was framing my reaction to their theft as stress that was harming my sister. I was the aggressor. Paige was the victim. The crime itself, the secret chat, the stolen money. The lies was irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was maintaining the family equilibrium. I did not reply. I drove to Harborwick. I needed to see the fragile one. I texted Paige, meet me at the salt box. Now. She replied instantly, I can't. I'm busy. I typed back, I know about the debt. Meet me. She was there in 20 minutes. The salt box was a trendy cafe near the water, the kind of place that sold $6 lattes and gluten-free scones. Paige was sitting at a corner table, wearing oversized sunglasses and a hoodie. She looked hungover. I sat down across from her. I didn't order anything. Take off the glasses. Paige, I said. She sighed and took them off. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked younger than 29. She looked like a teenager who had been caught skipping school. What do you want? Violet, she asked. Mom says you are going crazy. Mom says a lot of things. I said, I want to know why you are doing this. Doing what? Helping them cut me out. You were in that chat. Paige, You said I was too independent. You said I didn't need the money. Because you don't, Paige snapped, her voice rising. People looked over at us. She lowered her voice to a hiss. Look at you. Violet, you have a career. You have a retirement account. You have a perfect credit score. You always land on your feet. So because I work hard, I deserve to be robbed, I asked. It is not robbery. It is redistribution. I am drowning. Violet, I have $30,000 in credit card debt. Ethan is barely making rent. Mom and Gordon are, I don't know. They are struggling too. Gordon is struggling because he makes bad investments. I said, and you are drowning because you buy things you cannot afford. Paige's face crumpled. It is not fair, she whispered. You were always the smart one, the strong one. Granddad loved you best. You know he did. I looked at her. Is that what this is? I asked. You are punishing me for being loved. I'm not punishing you, she said. I am just leveling the playing field. You don't need the safety net. We do. I sat back. It was a narrative. They had told themselves a story where I was the invincible superhero who could survive anything. So taking my parachute wasn't murder, it was just efficiency. Paige, I said gently, the money isn't the safety net. The truth is, and right now, you are lying to yourself. Gordon isn't protecting you. He is using you. He is not, she said automatically. He is charging the fund fees. I said, did you know that what Hale and Mercer, they take a percentage. Every time they move money, they take a cut. Gordon isn't doing this to help you pay off your visa bill. He is doing it to pay off his own. Paige blinked. She looked genuinely confused. He said he was doing it pro bono, because he is family. I reached into my bag and pulled out the copy of the amendment log I had made. I slid it across the table. Look at the entry from January of last year. I said, vote to increase administrative fees to Hale and Mercer Advisory. Paige looked at the paper. Her mouth opened slightly. He voted for it. I said, and you voted for it too. You are on the committee. I just sign what he gives me, she stammered. I don't read the minutes. He says it is just formalities. I looked at my sister. She wasn't evil. She was just lazy and scared and willing to sell me out to keep her own comfort. That is dangerous. Paige, I said, because when the foundation audits this and they will your signature is on the approval for those fees. Paige's face went pale. Am I in trouble? She asked. Her voice was small. I don't know. I said, but you need to stop signing things. Today, I stood up. Violet, she said, are you going to tell them I looked down at her? I am going to fix it. I said, but you need to decide whose side you are on. The side that uses you, or the side that tells you the truth. I walked out of the cafe. I drove home in silence. The puzzle pieces were all there now. Gordon was a failed businessman using the fund as his personal piggy bank. Marianne was a coward who valued peace over integrity. Paige and Ethan were pawns, manipulated by their own insecurity and Gordon's lies. And the foundation was a sleeping giant that would crush all of them if it woke up. I sat in my car in my driveway. I looked at the house I had bought with my own money. I could destroy them. I had the evidence. I could send the binder to the state attorney general. I could send it to the local paper. Prominent Local Family Defrauds Charity Fund. It would feel good. For about 5 minutes, then the scholarships would stop. The students at Renfield High would get letters saying their tuition was gone. The food pantry would lose its grant, and my family would be destroyed. Not just humbled, destroyed. Gordon would likely face charges. Paige might too. My mother would be broken. Collateral damage. I remembered Granddad's letter. The fund was never meant to be a leash. It was meant to be a ladder. He hadn't wanted this. He hadn't wanted a war. I took a deep breath. I wouldn't expose them publicly. Not yet. I would build a timeline. A clean, undeniable, factual timeline of every lie, every fee, and every illegal amendment, and I would present it to them. I would give them one chance to surrender, one chance to restore the fund, pay back the fees, and resign from the committee. If they did it, we could keep it quiet. The kids would keep their scholarships. The family name would survive, but if they refused, if they tried to gaslight me one more time, then I would let the giant wake up. I went inside and opened my laptop. I created a new document. Timeline of events. Collins Legacy Fund malfeasance. Item 1 September 2024. Rejection of business venture. Item 2 October 2024. Amendment 4 Voting rights. Item 3 Notification. Failure 412 Maple Street. I typed until my fingers hurt. I was not writing a story anymore. I was writing an indictment, and I was going to serve it in person. The letter took 3 hours to draft, not because it was long, but because it had to be bulletproof. I sat at my kitchen table with Tessa, the glow of the laptop screen illuminating the dark circles under our eyes. We were performing a kind of linguistic surgery, cutting away all the adjectives, all the adverbs, all the pain, until only the skeleton of the facts remained. You cannot say, "I feel like I am being cheated," Tessa said, deleting a sentence. Feelings are not evidence. You have to say, "I request verification of the beneficiary distribution schedule pursuant to the original 1998 gift instrument." It sounds so cold. I said, "It is supposed to be cold." She replied, "Cold is safe. Heat is where they get you. If you get hot, they call you hysterical. If you stay cold, they have to deal with the words on the page." I watched her type. We were asking for 4 things: verification of my standing as a beneficiary, a complete history of all notices sent regarding amendments, documentation showing who had the authority to make those amendments, and a full disclosure of all advisory fees paid to Hale and Mercer Advisory. It was a trap, disguised as a query. If they answered honestly, they admitted to the conflict of interest. If they refused to answer, they violated the transparency bylaws of the foundation. "Send it," Tessa said. I hit send. The email whooshed away to the general inbox of the Renfield Community Foundation. I felt a strange sense of loss. I knew that once that email landed, the invisible war would become a visible one. There was no going back to the way things were the Sunday dinners. The polite fiction that we were a normal, loving family, I had just served them notice. The response came 2 days later. It was not from the compliance officer. It was from Jessica Thorne, the administrator I had spoken to on the phone. "Dear Ms. Collins, we have received your request for documentation. Given the complexity of the questions regarding the committee structure, the Foundation believes the most productive path forward is a joint meeting between yourself and the full family committee to review the governance history. We have scheduled the boardroom for next Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. I read the email twice. They were trying to corral me. They didn't want to put anything in writing. They wanted to get me in a room with Gordon, my mother, and Mercer, where they could talk over me, gaslight me, and rely on the social pressure of a family gathering to make me back down. They wanted a confrontation on a stage that favored the loudest voices. I called Tessa. "They want a meeting." I said, "Don't go." She said immediately, "Demand the documents by mail. If I don't go, they will say I'm being uncooperative." I said, "They will say I am refusing to engage in the restorative process. I know how Gordon thinks. He will spin my absence as a tantrum. Then go." Tessa said, "But change the rules." I wrote back to Jessica. "Dear Ms. Thorne, I am willing to attend a meeting to review these matters. However, given the nature of my inquiry regarding procedural irregularities, I require that a neutral compliance officer from the Foundation be present for the duration of the discussion. Furthermore, I request that the meeting be formally recorded, or that official minutes be taken and signed by all parties, if these conditions are not met. I will refer my document request to external counsel. It was a gamble. Foundations hate lawyers. They hate the idea of external counsel sniffing around their donor files. 10 minutes later, the reply came. Ms. Collins, the Director of Compliance, Mr. David Arndt, will sit in on the meeting. Minutes will be taken. I exhaled. I had my witnesses. Now all I had to do was survive the wait. The days leading up to the meeting felt like the air before a thunderstorm heavy, static charged, and oppressive. My family knew I was coming. They knew I had escalated things, and they began to shift their tactics accordingly. It started with Ethan. He called me on Saturday afternoon. I was folding laundry, trying to keep my hands busy. "Hey, Vi," he said. His voice sounded strained, like he was calling from a room where other people were listening. "Hi, Ethan? Look, I was thinking, maybe we could grab a beer tonight. Just the two of us. Talk like adults. Talk like adults." That was Gordon's phrase. Gordon loved to tell us to be adults whenever he wanted us to swallow something unpleasant. "Talk about what?" "Ethan," I asked. "Just everything. This whole mess. It is getting out of hand. Vi, Mom is a wreck. She's been crying for 2 days. I felt a pang of guilt, sharp and familiar. My mother's tears had always been the ultimate weapon in our house. They ended arguments, canceled plans, and silenced dissent. I am sorry she is upset." I said, "But I didn't start this." "Ethan, I know. But can't we just fix it without the foundation getting involved? Gordon says if they audit the fund, it could get locked up for years." "Nobody gets anything. That is not true," I said. "It gets locked up until the irregularities are resolved. If there are no irregularities, it opens right back up. Why is Gordon so afraid of an audit?" Ethan sighed. "He is not afraid. He hates the bureaucracy. Come on, Vi, just meet me. We can work something out." I realized then that he wasn't calling to talk. He was calling to negotiate. He had been sent as an envoy to broker a peace treaty before the soldiers took the field. "I can't, Ethan," I said. "I will see you on Wednesday." He hung up without saying goodbye. Then came Paige. She didn't call. She didn't text. She took her grievances to the public square. On Sunday morning, I opened social media to see a series of updates from her. A photo of her looking wistfully out a window with the caption, "Cutting out toxic people is self-care." Sometimes the people who share your blood are the ones who drain your spirit. Another post, a quote on a black background, "Greed destroys families. Grateful for the ones who stay true." It was masterfully vague. To the outside world, it looked like she was dealing with a difficult friend or a bad breakup. But to our extended family, to the cousins, the aunts, the friends of the family, it was a signal. Violet is the villain. Violet is the toxic one. I put my phone down. I wanted to scream. I wanted to comment on the post and say, "I am not the one charging the charity fund a 2% advisory fee." Paige, but I didn't. I let it sit. Engaging with the noise only validates it. Then, the voicemails from Marianne. She called late at night, her voice thick with what sounded like whine and sorrow. "Violet, it is Mom. I am praying for you. I am praying that you find peace in your heart. I know you are hurting, and I know you think we are against you, but we love you so much. Please, honey, don't let money ruin us. Call me." It sounded like a grieving prayer. It sounded like I had died or joined a cult. She wasn't angry. She was disappointed. She was framing my quest for the truth as a spiritual failing. A loss of peace. It was gaslighting of the highest order. It made me question my own reality. Was I the aggressor? Was I ruining the family over a few $1,000s? I needed a reality check. I called Lena. She agreed to meet me for a quick walk in the park. It was drizzling. A gray, miserable day that matched my mood. Lena looked grim when she saw me. "You need to know what they are saying," she said, cutting straight to the chase. "Tell me," I said. "Gordon called Uncle Mark yesterday, and Aunt Sarah, and he told them you are having a mental health spiral." I stopped walking. The wet leaves plastered to the pavement looked like rot. "A what?" He said. "You are under a lot of stress at work, that you are not sleeping, and that you have become fixated on the legacy fund as a way to exercise control. He said they are trying to get you help, but you are lashing out." My hands curled into fists in my pockets. "He is preemptively discrediting me." I said, "He knows I'm going to walk into that meeting with facts, so he is telling everyone that the facts are just hallucinations of a crazy woman." "It is working." "Violet, Lena said gently. Aunt Sarah was worried. She asked if she should call you. What did you tell her? I told her that you are the sanest person in the family, Lena said fiercely. I told her that Gordon is a liar. But you know Sarah. She hates conflict. She wants to believe the version of the story where everyone is nice and nobody is stealing. I nodded. Of course. It is easier to believe the daughter is crazy than to believe the father is a thief. Thank you for telling me. I said. I went home and sat on my couch. The silence of the apartment felt different now. It didn't feel peaceful. It felt lonely. I had always prided myself on my independence. I was the strong one, the capable one, but hearing that my own mother and stepfather were painting me as mentally unstable, it cracked something inside me. It touched a deep, primal fear, the fear of being invalidated, the fear of screaming for help and having everyone just smile and nod and say, "Poor thing. She is having an episode." I picked up the phone and made an appointment with Dr. Aris. I had been seeing Dr. Aris for 3 years, mostly for work stress and the general anxiety of modern life. She was a calm, sharp woman with a voice like gravel and honey. I sat in her office on Monday evening. I told her everything, the letter, the text messages, the mental health spiral rumor. I feel like I'm going crazy. I said, I feel like maybe I am the villain. Maybe I should just sign the paper and let them have it. Maybe the money isn't worth this. Doctor. Aris looked at me over her glasses. Is it about the money, she asked? No. I said, it is about the truth. It is about the fact that they sat at a dinner table and lied to my face while they had a group chat on a tablet 5 feet away plotting to erase me. Then why would standing up for that truth make you a villain because it hurts them? I said, it hurts Paige. It hurts Mom. Violet, she said, if I punch you in the face and you scream and my hand hurts from hitting you, am I the victim because my hand hurts? No. Your family struck first, she said. They broke the contract of trust. Your reaction, your gathering of evidence, your demand for accountability is not aggression. It is self-defense. And the fact that they are calling it crazy is a tactic. It is a very old, very common tactic used by systems to expel the whistleblower. Clarity is not cruelty, she added. Remember that. You are not being cruel by turning on the lights. You are just showing what is in the room. I left her office feeling lighter. The hurt was still there, the deep, aching sadness of losing the illusion of a loving family, but the doubt was gone. I was not crazy. I was just awake. On Tuesday morning, Tessa called me at work. I found something. She said, what I was looking into the accounting firm that prepares the tax filings for the foundation, and specifically for the Collins Legacy Fund. It is a small firm called Hale. Miller and Associates. Hale, I asked. Like Gordon. I did some digging. Tessa said, the Hale on the letterhead is Robert Hale, Gordon's cousin. I closed my eyes. Of course it is. It gets better, Tessa said. Robert Hale isn't just the accountant. He is the registered agent for the LLC that manages the temporary hold account they tried to set up for you. So it is a closed loop. I said, Gordon advises the fund. His cousin audits the fund. And his partner holds the money. Exactly, Tessa said. It is not technically illegal to use a cousin's firm if it is disclosed. But combined with everything else, it reeks of conspiracy. It destroys the argument of independent oversight. Add it to the timeline, I said. I hung up. The picture was complete. It wasn't just a family dispute. It was a grift. A small, sad, domestic grift. I needed to talk to Ethan one last time, not to negotiate, but to give him a chance to save himself. I texted him. Meet me at the reservoir, 4 o'clock. He was waiting for me by the water. The Briar Glen Reservoir was a vast, flat expanse of gray water, ringed by pine trees. It was where we used to come as kids to skip stones. Ethan looked terrible. He was pale, unshaven, shivering slightly in his denim jacket. You came, he said. I walked up to him. I didn't smile. I am not here to make a deal. Ethan, I am here to ask you a question. He looked at his boots. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. In the chat, you saw them calling me unstable. You saw them planning to cut me out. Why didn't you send me a text? Just a warning, Ethan kicked a loose stone. It skittered across the pavement and plunked into the water. I was scared, he said quietly. Scared of what? Of Gordon, yeah. And of being out. Out. You know how they are. V, if you are not with them, you are against them. If I had stood up for you, Gordon would have turned on me. He would have started looking at my debts. He would have started talking about my instability. I looked at my brother. He was 26 years old. But in that moment, he looked like a frightened child. He had traded his integrity for safety. He had watched his sister be fed to the wolves because he didn't want to be the next course. So you sacrificed me. I said, I didn't think you would care, he burst out, looking up at me with wet eyes. You are so strong. Violet, you are always fine. You have the good job, the apartment, the life. I thought you would just shrug it off. I didn't think you needed the money. I stared at him. It is not about the money, Ethan, I said, my voice trembling with a sudden, sharp anger. It is about the fact that I am your sister, and you let them treat me like an enemy because it was convenient for you. I am sorry, he whispered. I took a deep breath. The anger softened, leaving behind a cold, hard clarity. I am not asking you to be brave. Ethan, I know that is not who you are right now, but tomorrow, at that meeting, I am asking you to be honest. When the compliance officer asks about the group chat, do not lie. That is all. He wiped his nose with his sleeve. Gordon told us to say the chat was hypothetical, that we were just brainstorming. Is that what you are going to say? I asked. He didn't answer. If you lie tomorrow, Ethan, you are not just hurting me. You are perjuring yourself in front of a Foundation compliance officer. Think about that. I turned and walked away. I left him standing by the water, a small figure against the gray vastness of the reservoir. I didn't know what he would do. I couldn't save him. He had to save himself. That night, I sat in my apartment, preparing for the battle. I had my binder. I had the timeline. I had the letter from Granddad. At 9 o'clock, my email pinged. It was from Lucas Mercer. Subject: confidential settlement proposal. Dear Violet, in the interest of preserving family harmony and avoiding a protracted administrative review, the committee has authorized me to present you with a one-time settlement offer. The fund will issue a payment of $100,000 to an account of your choosing. In exchange, you will agree to 1. Voluntarily withdraw your beneficiary status from the Collins Legacy Fund. 2. Sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding all internal committee communications. 3. Waive all future claims against the committee and its advisors. This offer expires at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I stared at the number. $100,000. It was a lot of money. It was more than 10 years of quarterly distributions. It was a buyout. They were terrified. They knew that if I walked into that meeting with the compliance officer, the game was over. They were willing to drain the fund to silence me. I felt a wave of nausea. This was the final proof. They didn't care about protecting the legacy. They didn't care about security. They just wanted me gone. They were willing to pay a premium to erase me from the family history. If I took it, I could walk away. I could pay off my mortgage. I could never speak to Gordon Hale again. But I would have to sign an NDA. I would have to agree that their lies were true. I would have to let them keep doing this to the scholarship kids, to the food pantry, to whatever future relative fell out of favor. I thought about Granddad's letter. If they ever make you sign something to receive what is already yours, you are not receiving a gift, you are accepting control. This was the ultimate control. They were trying to buy my integrity. I hit print. The printer whirred. The page slid out. Warm and crisp. I punched 3 holes in it and added it to the binder, right next to the mental health accusations and the unstable texts. I was not going to take the money. I was going to take the meeting. I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, listening to the wind rattle the window pane. I thought about the little girl who used to sit on Arthur Collins' porch, listening to stories about how he built a business from nothing. He had told me once that the only thing you truly own in this life is your name. If you sell that, you are bankrupt. No matter how much is in the bank, tomorrow, I would walk into that boardroom. I wouldn't be the daughter. I wouldn't be the sister. I wouldn't be the unstable woman they had invented. I would be Violet Collins, and I would make them say my name. The boardroom at the Renfield Community Foundation was a study in aggressive neutrality. It had gray carpets, gray walls, and a long mahogany table that reflected the fluorescent lights overhead like a calm, dark lake. I arrived 10 minutes early, but they were already there. My family sat on one side of the table. Gordon was in the center, flanked by my mother and Lucas Mercer. Paige and Ethan sat at the far end, looking like children who had been dragged to a principal's office. I sat on the opposite side, alone. At the head of the table sat Karen, the donor services representative I had met earlier, and a man I didn't know. He was thin, wearing a charcoal suit and wire-rimmed glasses. He introduced himself as David Arndt, the director of compliance. He did not smile. He placed a digital recorder on the table and pressed a button. A small red light blinked on. "This meeting is now in session," Mr. Arndt said. His voice was dry, devoid of warmth. "The purpose is to review the governance structure and beneficiary status of the Collins Legacy Fund. Mr. Hale, as chair, you may begin." Gordon straightened his tie. He looked polished, confident. He had his business face on, the one he used when he was trying to sell a bad investment. "Thank you." "David," Gordon said, "and thank you, Violet, for being here. I think there has been a significant misunderstanding, and I'm glad we can clear it up." He opened a folder. "The committee has recently moved to update our risk management protocols." Gordon continued, "We live in a volatile economic climate. Our only goal, is to ensure the longevity of Arthur Collins's legacy. To that end, we proposed a beneficiary responsibility agreement. It is a standard instrument designed to protect beneficiaries from external predation and from their own inexperience." My mother nodded vigorously. She looked pale, her hands clasping a tissue. "We just want you to be safe." "Violet," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "you know how much your grandfather worried about the future. We are just trying to carry that burden for you." Lucas Mercer leaned forward. He smiled, a smooth, practiced expression that didn't reach his eyes. "If I may," he said. His voice was like oiled leather. "From an advisory standpoint, we see this all the time. As families expand, the governance needs to mature. Violet's resistance to these updates is understandable. Change is hard, but it is an emotional reaction to a financial necessity. We are simply trying to professionalize the fund." I listened. I let them speak. I let them fill the room with their reasonable-sounding words. I let them paint the picture of a loving, protective committee dealing with a difficult, emotional daughter. Paige wouldn't look at me. She was staring at the table, picking at her cuticle. Ethan was looking at the wall, his jaw tight. "Are you finished?" I asked. Gordon smiled benevolently. "We are just getting started, Violet. But yes, that is the overview." I reached into my tote bag. I pulled out 5 copies of a thick, black-bound dossier. I slid one to Mr. Arndt, one to Karen, and one to the center of the table for my family. I kept one for myself. "I have prepared a timeline." I said, "I would like to walk through it." Gordon glanced at the binder. He looked annoyed, but not worried. He thought it was just a collection of my complaints. "Page 1, I said. "September 30th, 2 years ago. I waited for Mr. Arndt to turn the page. On this date, Gordon Hale approached me to invest in a craft brewery venture. I declined. The business plan was unsound. "Relevance?" Mercer asked, sounding bored. I ignored him. 2 weeks later, on October 14th, the Family Committee passed Amendment 4, changing the voting structure from unanimous consent to simple majority. This removed my ability to veto future investments. I turned the page. To pass this amendment, the bylaws require notification of all beneficiaries via certified mail. Here's a copy of the postal receipt for that notification. I pointed to the scanned image. It was sent to an address at the University of Pennsylvania. I graduated from there 11 years ago. The committee has sent my quarterly distribution checks to my current address in Briar Glen for the last 5 years. They knew where I lived. They chose to send the legal notice to a dead address to ensure I did not see it. Mr. Arndt made a note on his pad. He didn't look up. That is an administrative error, Gordon said quickly. A clerical mix-up. We have thousands of documents. Page 3. I said. I turned the page. This is a screenshot of a group chat titled Legacy Fund Strategy. The participants are Gordon Hale, Marianne Collins, Paige Collins, Ethan Collins, and Lucas Mercer. The air in the room changed. It was subtle, like a drop in barometric pressure. Gordon stiffened. Marianne stopped nodding. This chat was created 6 months ago. I said, I would like to read a few entries. I read them in a flat, monotone voice. August 12th, Gordon. If we do not move the allocation, her share is going to sit stagnant. August 12th, Paige. She is too independent to understand family priorities. She thinks she knows better than the experts. September 4th, L. Mercer. We will frame it as an administrative necessity. She cannot know the full scope of the amendment. I looked up. She cannot know the full scope. I repeated, Mr. Arndt, does that sound like an administrative error, or does it sound like conspiracy to defraud a beneficiary? Gordon slammed his hand on the table. It wasn't a loud slam, but it was sudden. This is a breach of privacy, he snapped. That was a private conversation. It was hypothetical. We were brainstorming scenarios. Hypothetical? I asked. I turned to page 4. Here is the beneficiary responsibility agreement you mailed to me 3 days ago. It contains the exact language discussed in the hypothetical chat, including the clause demanding I disclose my personal relationships. Mr. Arndt looked at the document. He adjusted his glasses. Mr. Hale, he said. His voice was very quiet. Is it true that you required Ms. Collins to disclose romantic partners to the committee as a condition of receiving her distribution? It is a standard risk assessment, Gordon insisted. Though he was sweating now, a sheen of perspiration had appeared on his upper lip. We need to know if there is undue influence. Mr. Arndt turned to Mercer. And Mr. Mercer, you are listed here as an independent advisor. I am, Mercer said. He was still smiling, but the smile had become brittle. I turned to page 5. This is the corporate filing for Hale and Mercer Advisory. I said, Gordon Hale and Lucas Mercer are equal partners. The fund pays an advisory fee of 2.5% to this firm, a fee that Gordon Hale voted to approve. I looked at Karen. Did the committee disclose this conflict of interest to the foundation? I asked. Karen looked at the binder. She looked sick. No, she whispered. They listed Mr. Mercer as an external consultant. Gordon stood up. This is ridiculous, he shouted. He was losing control. The mask was slipping. We are allowed to choose our own advisors. I recused myself from the vote. Did you? I asked. I looked at Paige. Paige, did Gordon leave the room when you voted on his fees? Paige looked up. Her eyes were wide, darting between Gordon and me. I don't remember, she stammered. I looked at Ethan. Ethan, I said. My brother was sitting very still. He looked at me, then at Gordon. He looked at the recorder with the blinking red light. I had told him I didn't need him to be brave. I just needed him to be honest. Ethan took a breath. He didn't recuse himself, Ethan said. His voice was low. Gordon whipped his head around. Ethan, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. He didn't leave the room, Ethan said, louder this time. He told us how to vote. He said it was just paperwork. He said we had to approve the fees so he could manage the investments better. And the group chat, Mr. Arndt asked, turning his gaze on Ethan. Was it hypothetical? Ethan shook his head. No, it wasn't hypothetical. Gordon told us that Violet was a problem. He said she was asking too many questions. He said we needed to put her share in a hold account so we could control it. He coached us on what to say to her. Ethan Marianne cried out. Stop it. You are hurting the family. I am telling the truth. Mom, Ethan yelled back. Finally. He looked at her. We lied. We have been lying for months, Paige snapped. You little traitor. She hissed at Ethan. You were fine with it when you used your check to pay your rent. You were fine with it when Gordon promised to fix your credit score. That is enough. Mister, Arndt said. His voice cracked like a whip. The room fell silent. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the heavy breathing of my mother. Lucas Mercer cleared his throat. He adjusted his cuffs. He realized the ship was sinking, and he was trying to find a lifeboat. David, surely we can see what is happening here, Mercer said smoothly. This is clearly a deep-seated family dysfunction. Violet is emotional. She is lashing out. While there may be some procedural lapses, the intent was always protective. We are happy to review the fee structure if that is the sticking point. I looked at him. He was incredible. He was going to try to spin this right until the end. I turned to the final page of the binder. I have one last document. I said. I slid the paper toward Mr. Arndt. This is an email I received from Lucas Mercer at 9 o'clock last night. I said. Mercer's face went gray. It was the first time I had ever seen him look truly afraid. It is a settlement offer. I said, $100,000 to voluntarily withdraw my beneficiary status and sign a non-disclosure agreement. I looked at Mercer. If this was about protecting me, I asked, my voice steady and cold, why did you try to pay me to disappear, Mr. Arndt picked up the email. He read it. He looked at the timestamp. He pressed the stop button on the recorder. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Mr. Arndt stood up. Effective immediately. The Renfield Community Foundation is freezing all assets associated with the Collins Legacy Fund. We will be suspending all disbursements, including beneficiary payments and external grants, pending a full forensic audit. No. Marianne wailed. She stood up, knocking her chair over. You can't. We can, and we will. Mr. Arndt said. Mr. Hale, Mr. Mercer, I am going to ask you to leave the premises. We will be in touch with your legal counsel regarding the undisclosed fees. Gordon looked at me. His face was a mask of pure hatred. You did this. He spat. Marianne turned to me. Tears were streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. Violet, how could you? She sobbed. The scholarships? The food pantry? You have ruined it all. You have punished everyone. I stood up. I gathered my binder. I felt incredibly tired. But my hands were steady. I didn't punish anyone. Mom, I said, I just turned on the lights. The freeze is not revenge. It is consequence. I walked out of the room. I didn't look back at them. I walked through the lobby and out into the parking lot. The sun was blindingly bright. I took a deep breath of fresh air. Violet. I turned. Gordon was storming across the asphalt after me. Mercer was already in his car, speeding away. But Gordon wasn't done. He stopped 5 feet from me. He was shaking. You think you won? He sneered. You think you are smart. You just cost this family everything. I cost you your slush fund. Gordon, I said, there is a difference. I am going to ruin you, he said, stepping closer. I am going to tell everyone in this town that you are mentally unstable. I am going to tell them you harassed your mother until she had a breakdown. You will not have a friend left in Briar Glen by the time I am done. I looked at him. He was small. He was just a small, greedy man who had convinced himself he was a king. Go ahead, I said. I opened my car door. But you should know. Gordon, I didn't bring the originals today. He froze. What the original gift instrument? The letter from Granddad? The real documents? I scanned them, and then I sent the originals via courier to Marcus Thorne's law firm in the city. Gordon's face went slack. Marcus Thorne was the most feared estate litigator in the state. He was also my grandfather's old lawyer. They are in his safe, I said, and I gave him instructions. If anything happens to me, if my reputation is smeared, if I am harassed, if my employment is threatened, he is to release the full file to the Attorney General. I got into the car. It is out of my hands now. Gordon, I suggest you go home and call a lawyer. You are going to need one. I slammed the door and drove away. My phone rang 10 minutes later. It was a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Collins. "It is David Arndt." I pulled over to the side of the road. "Yes, Mr. Arndt, I wanted to inform you that based on the evidence presented, we have grounds to remove the current family committee. We are appointing an independent trustee to manage the fund during the audit." "Thank you," I said. "And Ms. Collins." "Yes, we found the original gift agreement in our archives. You were right. Your beneficiary status is irrevocable. They could never have cut you out legally. They were just hoping you wouldn't read the fine print." I closed my eyes. "Thank you for telling me." I drove home. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a hollow ache. I walked into my apartment. It was quiet. I went to my bedroom and pulled the metal box out from under the bed. I sat on the floor. I had emptied it. Mostly. The binder was gone. The letters were with the lawyer, but there was one thing left. I had missed it before because it had slipped under the liner at the bottom of the box. A small, folded piece of notepaper. I pulled it out. It was my grandfather's handwriting again. But this note wasn't dated. It looked like a stray thought he had jotted down. The hardest thing about building a legacy is knowing it might destroy the people you built it for. If it comes to a choice between the money and the truth, choose the truth. The money always runs out. The truth lasts forever. I held the note to my chest. He had known. He had seen the cracks in the foundation long before the house fell down, and he had left me the tools to survive the collapse. I wasn't happy. I wasn't triumphant. I was just clean. My phone buzzed on the floor beside me. Voicemail received. I picked it up. It was from my mother. I hesitated. I almost deleted it, but I pressed play. There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing. I could hear the sound of a clock ticking in the background. "Violet," she said. Her voice was small, broken. There was another pause. "Gordon is in the study with his lawyer. Paige is in her room. Ethan left." She sniffled. I don't know what to do. Violet, without the fund, without the structure, what do we do now?" The message ended. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't attacking. She was asking me to fix it. She was asking the daughter she had betrayed to come back and tell her how to live without the lie. I listened to it twice. I thought about calling her back. I thought about telling her that she would be fine, that they would figure it out. But I didn't. I put the phone down. I put the note back in the box and closed the lid. I stood up and walked to the window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the street. What do we do now? We live with the truth, and for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to seeing what that looked like. Thank you so much for listening to I Found Out My Family Had a Group Chat Without Me, and They Planned to Cut Me Out of the Fund. This story was a journey into the dark side of family loyalty and the courage it takes to stand alone. I would love to hear your thoughts on Violet's decision. Did she do the right thing by freezing the fund, even though it hurt the scholarships, or should she have taken the settlement? Let me know in the comments below. And please tell me where you are listening from. I love seeing our community grow across the world. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button for Revenge Stories. We have many more tales of betrayal, justice, and the long road to redemption coming your way. Until next time, stay safe, and remember sometimes the truth is the only legacy that matters.